Okay, so welcome back. This week we have a couple of assignments, and it's actually divided into about four main parts, and of which two of these main parts have some divisions. The first part is network port, which in its division we have two. We have either using PowerShell or command prompt to display a list of active network connections, and then also their listening port, and then process IDs that are associated to these ports. Then the second part of the network port is going to be identifying two ports numbers, and then we'll look up on the numbers and what they are typically used for. Now, the second task is going to be running services. So either using the services tool with within the server manager, or using PowerShell command line to see a list of running services on the server. Then also we have the third part of the running service, the second part of the running services, to be identifying a few services that are related to network communication. Then the last part of the running services will be identifying two services and then look up on what they are typically also used for. Now, the third task is going to be creating a firewall rule that allows inbound and outbound traffic on a specific port, which has to do with port 50,000. And this rule will be set for TCP only. And then the last would also be creating a scheduled task to check for Windows update on a daily basis. So that is going to be all of the things that I'm going to get done today, and I'm going to start off with a network port, checking on active connections and then their related listening ports and associated processes. So I'll quickly go into my start menu and then get my PowerShell, window PowerShell, and I'm going to start off with getting the command running. Now, there are a couple of options that are available to me that I can use, and some of these options include using the net start, and the net start will add the A and O, which basically this is supposed to give me more options. So the A and O, which is supposed to be my supporting argument for my net start, and the A is supposed to display all connections and listening ports, and then the N is supposed to display addresses and port numbers in numerical forms, and then we have the last one being the O, which is supposed to display the owning processing IDs associated with each connection. And with this, I could go ahead and then hit enter and then wait for my query to be generated. Net. Okay, so I think I made a mistake with my net start and then dash A. That is way too long that I would want it to be. So for now, I'm just going to hit Control C to halt or to stop the reading or the generation of the query, and I'll just scroll up, and that's a lot. Wow, there's a lot of connections to deal with. So this is with the TCP protocol, or the protocol being used, or the protocol that the connections are using. And with the first address, which is a local address, is using a TCP, same as the foreign address, which is supposed to be the remote address, is also using TCP. And the ports are being listening to. And with the local address, it's listening on 22, that's port 22. We also have the next lesson on 88, 135, and so on. And the port numbers being different, actually with the same address, for instance, like the local address, and the numbers being different is just indicating the multiple connections that are being made by the address. And anytime a new connection is made or a new request is made, a new port must be open for the address. So that is why we have the numbers changing. All right. And I have the processing IDs also on the far end of the whole address list put out. When we come down, we also have some addresses which are not link locals, or they are not just zeros, but actually these are like some real IP addresses, and still making connections to the foreign addresses in zeros. But when we come down to the 10.0.0.5 33 with the port number 3389, this is actually establishing a remote desktop connection, and that has to do with my remote desktop connections that I have between my local machine and my Azure VM. All right. So I have other connections with the main Azure system also having its IP address 168 with the port number that it always connects to, and the same IP address is also connecting over the internet using over the HTTP, sorry. And another connection is also established between my VM, that is the 10.0.0.5, and then to the 168, which is the Azure system, or the Azure server itself. So all right, so I want to be using the TCP connection, of which even with that, that also comes with two approaches that can be used to get the connections, or the active connections with their port, and then related processing IDs retrieved. And so I'm going to start with the first one, and then I'll talk about the second one, but I'm not going to actually go into that. So with my first one, that is going to be get. So that will be get dash, and then that is going to be net TCP connection and then I'm going to append another command to it, say select object, and the object that we want to be selecting has to do with the local address. separate that with a comma. Local port, separate that with a comma. Then we try to get a remote address. Separate that with a comma. Then we get a remote port, and then we separate that with a comma as well. Then we try to get a state, and then finally owning processes. Now I'm going to close this off, and I want to have this formatted as a table. So format dash table. It should be making sure my table is well spelled, and then use the auto size. Use the auto size parameter to want to make sure that my table that is being created will fit within the space of my window, and I wouldn't have some of the content truncated. I'll go ahead and press enter, and this is nice. So there's also a lot to deal with. So I have my local address with the local port attached all next to the address. So all these are loopback addresses, and we have some link local addresses as well. And for my columns, I have my local address, the local port, remote address, remote port, and then the state in which the connection is, and then we have the owning process, which is the process IDs. Our next task is identifying two ports within our list of ports, and then identifying the port, and then also establishing what they are typically used for. So I'm going to pick out the port on the remote, on this remote address, that is the 20.59.87.226, and it has a port of 443. Now usually this is actually an HTTPS listening port, which means this particular address is actually making requests via the internet or on a web server, or making requests from web server, or from a web server, or actually would even be the server that's actually serving out the information. All right, but just this means that we have the communication done on the server, on a web server, or making requests on a web server. That is one. The port 80 also is the same as the 443, and this port here, which is the 32526, is actually the port for the Microsoft Azure, the whole Azure server, and that is a port that the system uses to want to communicate on the network. Now our next instruction, or our next task that we're supposed to be undertaking is the running of services, and this is this also is either we're using the services tool within the server manager, or we're using PowerShell command or the command line to want to get this done. And I would want to actually go ahead and then use the PowerShell. Since I'm already in it, I would go ahead and then use the PowerShell to want to get this done. And to have that done, I'm going to be using the get services command from the PowerShell interface, and that is going to be get dash service and then space WMI object. So the WMI object is supposed to get me data from the system, which this could include like hardware properties, services, and so on. Right. And I also want to specify the particular information I want to be retrieving from my system, and that will be the Windows, which is a Win32 underscore service. And I'm going to append another command specifying the where object, where objects such as the state equals running. So where object, and then into bracket where dash object into curly brace, and that will be state equals running, and I'll close off my curly bracket, and I'll pen another command, and that will be the select object, and the object I want to be selecting will be the name of the service, its display name, and then its process ID. And I want to append my last command, which I would want the whole data after the query is generated to be in okay, so that is going to be in a formatted table. So I'll format as a table, and I will also add the auto resize. That will be auto size, to make sure that my table is well sized up to fit my interface, not having some of the content truncated. So I'll go ahead and then hit enter, and I got an error with my potential parameter cannot be found, Win32 service. How is that possible? Okay, so going through to check and then to try and get my error fixed. WMI object Win32 32 underscore service. Okay, so I think I made a mistake with the get service command in the first place. So it's rather supposed to be get the WMI object rather. Okay. But so it's rather supposed to be this way and not the other way around. So the get services also is a way of getting services displayed. It's just that it doesn't go with some of these appended for instance like the WMI object as a parameter being thrown to it, or an argument being thrown to it. It doesn't have those things. So I think this should work now, and it does, which gives me a list of processes and their display names and their processing IDs. So okay, so these are my services on my running on my system. That's my server, and currently I'm supposed to be identifying at least two. Okay, so I'm supposed to be identifying some related network services, and then also after that choose two of these services and then explain what they're supposed to be doing. So quickly I'll just point out a couple of network related services here, and we have the DNS, the DHCP client, the DNS server, DNS client. We can also have the TCP/IP session net BIOS helper. We also have the network relay services, network store interface services, and so we could also have the remote procedure call. That also is a network related service. We can also have the remote desktop configuration. That's also a network related service. We have other stuff like the OpenSSH, SSH, sorry. Then we also have the remote desktop service, the remote desktop service user mode port. Now these are all network related services. Now PowerShell also has a means of you just querying for only network related services. All right, and I quickly want to run that so that we can just get only network related services as we have all the services being displayed. We can have just network related services also being displayed. And I'm going to start off with my command again. That's the same command as a get dash WMI object. Then we have the win32 underscore service. And I want to append a new command to it. We're using the where parameter, where object parameter, to want to fetch specific object type or specific data from the database. So from the where we want to check running services, so the $_ state, we want to say it should be equal to running, and we close off this and we append another command to it, which is going to be the for each function. The for each function object, which is supposed to be checking out on every object that is retained. Is going to look through the whole collection and then get us what we actually want. So object, and then we have the process variable. Need to give it a name. Variable process is equal to get dash process, and then we want to get the ID, and the ID is going to be $_ underscore dot process ID. Now also we want to just check on errors, so we want to make sure if there are any errors, the error shouldn't be preventing us from having our query or our command executed or our query brought to us. So we see error action is supposed to be silent, silently continue. So we want the whole thing to continue running, even if we kind of have some errors being generated or popping up. We'd also want to go ahead and then create a partial custom object, and that is going to be a PS custom object. So we have object data or object content being as in the table headers that we are going to fetch our data from, and we're going to have them to be in the form of as in the table headers, and then what properties that we want to be fetching under such table headers. So this will be service name, and that will be equal to $_name. Then we have display name, which will be equal to $_display name. Then we have PID, that's a process ID, and that is going to be $_process ID. last of the objects to be fetched will be the process name, which will be equal to dollar, which is going to be the variable that I created initially. That is my process. Dot process name. All right. So with that done, I'm going to close off my object. My object, and then close off my for each object as well. And I'll go ahead to append my formatting table, and also the auto size. So much of errors. Alright, so I think I might have typed something wrong. Silent. Okay. So it has to do with my error catching statement. That's a lot. Okay. So I think I just have to go into my code and check through what I did wrong, and that has to do with my silently. It says silently. Alright. So I think I should have that. Okay. So just to be sure, I just want to run through to make sure everything is spelled out right. So get dash wim. Okay, this is correct. That is correct. Where object state equals running for each object. Process equals get process ID dot. Okay, all right, very good. So everything turns out to be where it's supposed to be. So I think I'm good to go. All right. So this is supposed to fetch me. Okay, so I think I made a mistake again. All right, and I think this is not a command I'm supposed to be using. Okay, so I want to enter my commands that get me only network related services, not all services, but only the ones that are related to network. And that is good. So getting my command running. WMI object, and that's going to be the Win32 service, and then append another command to it, and that's going to be the where clause where object, and then into a curly brace to be the name underscore dot name equals sorry, this is supposed to be name matches. Name match. So I'm going to run my commands that get me only the network related services, and that's going to be the get large WMI object, and then the Win32 service where object, and that is going to be services. Sorry, where state rather. State equals running. And we have name, name match, net, DHCP, DNS, TCP, IP, HTTP, wireless, firewall, and network. All we have display name, display name matches or match. We're going to run the same thing. Display name matches net, DHCP, DNS, TCP, IP, wireless, HTTP, wireless, firewall, and network. Okay, so now I'm going to close off my bracket. And then I'll close off my curly bracket as well. And I'm going to select object. Select object, and that is going to be the name separated with a comma. Display name separated with a comma. The state. Separated with a comma, and then my process ID. And I want to format as a table and auto size up my table. Alright, so we have been able to get a list of network related services, and these are the services running. We want to pick out a couple of them, minimum like 2, to explain what they actually do. And the first one is going to be the net logon. That is the services here. The service here, sorry. So the net logon is a Windows system service which is actually responsible for which is responsible for authentication and domain related communication between devices and domain controllers in an Active Directory environment. So what does this mean? Basically, the net logon is responsible for making sure that user credentials are actually checked out before the user have access to the domain controller. In other words, it helps to verify the user's name and user password against what is found on the domain controller, and if it works out, the user gets to be logged in. Also, it works with Kerberos and NTLM protocols. This also helps to make sure that it registers and maintains DNS records, which means that dynamically registered DNS records such as SRV and A records that allow clients to locate domain controllers are actually in place to make sure clients can actually have access to domain controllers. Alright, so basically that is what the net logon does. The next one, okay, so very good. Next one is going to be, let me see, okay, so this set prop SV, which is actually, that is the service name, but it displays name is certification propagation. And what does this also do? So this is also a service. This is also a service that actually copies or propagates certificate from a smart card to the user's personal certificate store on the local computer. So this makes sure that the user, once they have the smart card and then tries to log on, they given access to a log on, they can use this to have access to email encryption and decryption, and then even have access to secure websites and so on. So that is the two that we have that we can explain. So next step from this particular assignment is creating a firewall rule. A firewall rule that allows inbound and outbound traffic on port 50,000 for only TCP protocols. So we're going to go ahead. Let me minimize my PowerShell, and then I'm going to go to the tools, and from the tools I will look for so Windows Defender Firewall with advanced security. Now this can also be accessed through going through the control panel and then accessing the firewall from the control panel under security, and then from that we could also gain access to it by clicking on the advanced button. So from settings, search for control panel, and we have system and security, and under system and security we can go to Windows Defender Firewall, and under that we have advanced settings. Clicking on this still opens the same window for us. So I'm just going to close this and then close up my control panel, and then also my settings panel as well go off. Alright, and now to my interface. Now I'm supposed to be creating two different rules, that is the inbound rule and then the outbound rules. So I'll start off with the inbound rule, and clicking on the inbound rule, I'm going to click on new rule, and with this, now because this is supposed to be for a port, I need to specify, or I need to choose what type of rule I want to be creating. So we have created rules for programs, for ports, for predefined objects or services like a domain name service or an active directory domain service. I'm creating for a port, so I will go straight to choosing the port option for TCP and UDP, and I'll click on next. And it is asking, or I need to specify for my port that is assigned to me, which is 50,000, port 50,000, and it's supposed to be only TCP, so it is good to stay like that. I'm going to click on next, and then I'm supposed to allow the connection. Yes, allow connection if it is secured. I'm going to leave it at the default settings, allow connection, and I'll go ahead, check the profile, as in when does this rule apply, when we have to connect to a corporate domain, when we have to connect to a private network location, and then also when we have to connect to a public network, which is okay. So I'll click next, and then the name is going to be okay, so I'm just going to be using the port name, so this will be TCP port 50,000. go ahead and click on next, and I have my rule set, which is for TCP port 50,000. Alright, so I'll go ahead and go to the inbound rule, sorry, the outbound rule, and I'm going to apply the same settings. Go to the port, click on next, and then insert my port number. It's also a TCP, so I'm not changing that. And I'll go to next for the action, and I'm going to click on allow for now, because we need the port to be active for outbound connections to be happening. So I'm going to click next, and then next, and this is going to be TCP. I should have port 50,000. Outbound. I'll click on next to finish up, and it is set. So my two rules have been set. Okay, so for us to turn on or turn off this rule, what we'd have to do is, first of all, click on the rule, double click to have the rule properties open, and we have the general, under which we have some of the properties such as the name of our rule, the description we set to it, and also the enabled, which actually enables the rule to be enforced. So I could go ahead and then uncheck this, and this forces the rule, or this makes the rule not applicable in any sense until the enable has been clicked on again, or unless it has been enabled maybe through the PowerShell. Alright, so I'll go ahead and then click on apply, and I have my rule disabled, and you realize that all the rules here are having the green check marks, signifying that, well, they are actually enabled and working. For those that do not have the check marks, the green check marks in front of them just tells you they have been disabled in the meantime. Alright, so I'll go to my inbound rules. I'm going to do the same to my TCP port 50,000. I think I'd have to add inbound to my description, sorry, to the name, and I'll just go ahead and click on check the enabled, apply, and OK. So that is how we get to enable or turn off or turn on our port. If I wanted to be turned on again, I just have to go to the port and then just click on enable, apply, OK, and our rule is enabled for communication. So the very last of the assignment today, or the task to be carried out today, would be the creating or scheduling of tasks, that is checking up Windows update on daily basis. And so I'm going to close off my firewall window, and then very quickly I'm going to go to the tools and I will search out for the task scheduler. Right, and from the task scheduler, all I want to do is create a schedule or create a task that's supposed to be doing something at a particular point in time. So I'll go ahead and then click on create task, and my window opens up, and I want to give a name to it, and this is supposed to be window so we'll make it daily Windows update checker. Alright, just add a bit of description. Checking for Windows update. Daily and installing. Downloading. So, and installing newly downloaded updates. All right. So I'll move on to the next. So we have run only one user is logged on. I actually want to have that run whether user is logged on or not, and that is just to make sure once the system is running and the user isn't logged on, we continue to have the updates done. Assuming user is away for let's say over the weekend, we can say because user is not logged on, updates shouldn't be done. And since it's supposed to be a daily thing, even over the weekends like Saturday, Sunday, we should have the updates. So we should have the task running. I'll go ahead and then check on the triggers and what is supposed to trigger this task to work. So I'm creating a new trigger, and they're supposed to be on daily basis, as in reoccur every 1 day or reoccur on daily basis. So that's what I'm choosing, and it's supposed to start at a particular point of time and then end at that point of time. So setting this, I'm going to pick out, okay, so it starts off today. All right, and okay, so with my time, I'm going to set it to a later hour, and I'm going to set this to be to, let's say, 11, and then we go into 11:59 00 p.m. before we enter the next day. Now synchronize across time zones, just to make sure if time zones have to change, the time remains the same time, it doesn't have to change. So well, I don't want to have any delays in the task execution, and I'll just go ahead and click OK. Alright, so our triggers have been created. The next will be the action, what action is this task supposed to take. So I'll go ahead and then create a new action. We want to start a program. And what program do we want to start? We want to start a partial. So that's going to be partial.exe. That is for the partial application. And my argument is going to be window style hidden dash command. And say install dash Windows update. Accept. Alright, so that is supposed to be one command, and this is basically checking through Windows and then also making sure that it checks for install update and then accept new update if there are, and if there are, well, it should have those updates checked upon and then installed as well, and then also have the system auto reboot. So after installation is done, the system should also auto reboot. Now I'm going to click OK, and I have my action added. But this is also not possible if I don't have the PowerShell window update module installed. So I'm quickly going to run my PowerShell again, and quickly I'm going to run the command that is going to get my the PowerShell Windows update installed. So that is going to be install module PS Windows update. So waiting for the system to respond, and it's getting it done. So I'll say yes. Okay, so I think I ran into one error. Okay, so I want to run the get ps repository to check for okay. Install package. Install package provider. Name of package Nugget. And also a minimum version of 2.8.5.201 and false. Okay, so our NuGet is installed. Going to try the installation package again. Install module. That is going to be PS Windows Update. Okay, so now I need to set PS repository and the name is supposed to be PS gallery. Installation policy. be trusted. I need to import my package provider. The name Nugget. Once this is done, well, I believe I can now go ahead and then install my PowerShell Windows update. So install module PS Windows update. Okay. So this will be install module, name of module, VPS Windows update. And the provider's name. Let me run again, this time without the provider name. Alright, so that went through and got my installation done for me. So now my updates are supposed to be done and checked on daily basis. I just have to go ahead and then finish up with this. If I have any condition, start the task only if the computer is in idle mode. No. Start the task only if the computer is on AC power. Now, this will be good for computers such as laptops, okay, or mobile devices. All right, but since we're not really dealing with that for the meantime, it's okay to leave it as such. With the computer to run this task, supposedly it's in sleep state, would need it to be awake for the task to run. Start off only if the following network condition is available, and I'm not going to do that. So I'll go ahead and then if there is anything else left, I think it's all good. Click OK, and I'll need a password to verify. Say OK, and it's done.